Hey there. So what software developers don't mention is the planning aspect when it comes to programming. I see a lot of questions online. They ask, how is it possible to code 8 hours a day? And the truth is, we don't code 8 hours a day. We actually do a lot of planning. We do a lot of testing, debugging, and integrating. And how do we make this process easier? We do it by organizing our data. When you have organized data, it makes it less stressful. It's easier to read. And it's just an overall better programming experience. So today I'm going to be talking about structs in C, and basically it's just a way to organize data in C. And you'll find analogous programming concepts in other programming languages. So if you're not going to code in C, I think this video will still be helpful for you. My name is Henrik, and I'm here to teach you how to program your own applications, stress less, build more, save time, and improve lives and the lives of others. All right, but before we begin, I would like to mention that I have a free guide called my Personalized Finance App Programming Guide. It's a 12-step guide. It teaches you how to take your credit card transactions and categorize them in different budget categories so you know how much you're spending. And if you download it and do what it says, you'll go from no coding experience to building your first app. And it's in the description. You can download it there, and it's free. I think this will be really helpful for you. All right, so let's get started. So data. Data is really important when it comes to coding. If you think about it, what does a computer actually do for humans? A computer just takes data, processes the data, and then spits out some data that the human wants. Like my application, right? You give your credit card data, and then you process the data, and then you spit out how much you're spending in different budget categories. So that's all a computer really is. That's all what a program really is. And if you think about it, what is the internet? The internet is a bunch of people putting data, and computers are processing it together and giving out to disseminating that information to different computers. So it's all about data. And if you don't have organized data, you're going to be stressed out, and we don't want that, right? We want to have less stress and save time, right? So the bottom line is that data is important. If you've ever heard of the terms front end or back end, you'll get this idea. If you think about what is front end development refers to what the user sees. Back end development refers to the data that the user is interacting with. And I'd like to think of it in this analogy. If you go to a restaurant, when you look at a menu, that's like the front end, but at the back end, the real food is like the kitchen. So all that data is really important. Without the data, then you're not getting a meal. So this terminology is mainly used for websites, but I think it's a helpful way to think about your software applications. And not all programs have a UI or a GUI component, but there is some part of the overall system that returns observable data to the user. So this tutorial is meant to give you an introduction on how to organize data in your program. And I think this will be helpful for you. If you've downloaded my guide, it will help you with the data structure part, and which is basically just taking the credit card transaction and storing it in the program, in the application. Okay, so in this example, let's imagine we have 3 students and we want to calculate their final grade. So we have their midterm, we have their second midterm, and the final exam. And then we average them out and give them their final grade. So how do we do that? Okay, let's start. Let's go into Rebelit. So here we're starting from scratch. We just have a printf that says let's grade. Okay, let's put in the students. I have 3 students that I came up with, and let's call them Alvin, Bella, and Charlie. So we have 3 students, and then say that we have for the first midterm, let's have them have these grades. Okay, so they have these grades for their first midterm. This midterm 86 is referring to Alvin, and this midterm is referring to Bella, and this midterm is referring to Charlie. So student 1, student 2, student 3. Okay, so now we have their second midterm. These are their exams, and the final exam, these are their grades. And this is how we would calculate their final grade. We take their midterm, and then their second midterm, and their final exam, and then we average it out and give them their grade. So grade student 1 is for Alvin, and grade student 2 is for Bella, and grade student 3 is for Charlie. And then let's print them out to the console. All right, so here's the print to the console. Let's run it, and there you go. So this is their final grade. So Alvin got an A, Bella got a B, and Charlie almost got a B. I mean, depending on the university, maybe he did get a B. And this is what it looks like. I think the indentation in Rebelit is limited. Well, it's also because I have a smaller screen for that I'm showing. But this is what the overall code looks like. Here's the calculations for the grades. And then these are the print statements we're using. So yeah, the program works, right? But it's not very clean, and you don't really know. What if you have like 100 students? You don't want to be doing something like this. It's going to be confusing. There's like how many variables? There's three variables for the exams, 3 variables for the finals, 3 variables for the midterms, or 6 variables, and then you have like different variables for the students, and it's just very, very complicated. And so you give this to your friend or your code developer, and they're going to look at this and they're going to be confused. Or maybe you're in the future, you're going to look back, you're going to look at this code that you wrote, and you're going to be confused. So it's a lot better to just have it in structs. So what is a struct? Okay, so here's a struct. You got your keyword, which is struct, and then you got your tag for student, and then you have the name, and then the midterm 1, midterm 2, final exam, and final grade. And the name, midterm 1, midterm 2, final exam, and final grade are the members of the struct. So let's put this in our code. Okay, let's go back. Let's go to so when you declare a struct, or when you create a struct, you should do it here in the beginning. All right, so there's a struct that we defined. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do type def. You don't have to know this now, but type def is really useful and makes your code look a lot better. But basically, it's a way to rename the struct so you don't have to use the tag struct every time when you're putting this in your program. You can just use the word student. So let's go into our main code, and instead of doing char student 1, char student 2, let's just create 3 students. Student 1, student 2. Okay, so we created 3 students. And now we're going to use these structs, and we're going to put the names in the struct. Okay, so this is the general idea for how you would use your struct. But because it is a string or a char array, you can't really do this. You have to use a function called strcopy. And basically, it's strcopy just takes the place that you want to store the string in, and then the second argument is the second argument is the name or the string that you're putting in there. And if you see this line, it says here implicitly declaring library function. So we actually have to declare the library that strcopy comes from. So let's add it up here. There you go. All right. Now we should have it there. Now it works. Now let's do the same for Bella and Charlie. Okay, so now we've stored the names of Alvin, Bella, and Charlie in the name fields. And that's how you access the field of that struct. You have a student 1 is one kind of variable, and then you just do dot and then name, and you get the name part of the struct here. Make sense? Now we're going to do the same idea for the midterms. So instead of declaring those variables and making it look all messy, we can just do this. And then same goes for the second midterms. And then the final exam. And then we can use the same field, we can use the final grade field of the struct and put it, instead of using float and declaring another variable, we can just replace it with student 1 final grade. And then you see here midterm 1, student 1. We can just replace that with the actual student struct, midterm 1. And then student 1 dot midterm term 2. And then student 1 dot final exam. All right. Now we do the same for student 2 and student 3 for Bella and Charlie. Okay. Now we replace the names here and the grades with the members of those structs. So it was student 1 name and student 1. We calculated the score, the final grade, and we put it inside final grade. Okay? Now we just copy the same thing into the others, and we will have replaced all of those variables that were not assigned to anything. We'll have replaced all those variables and that don't really have any correlation with the other variables, but now they're all correlated together, and now it looks a lot simpler, a lot cleaner, and it helps you stay organized. So let's use student 2 and student 3 here and run. All right, so there you go. Gives you the same output. Alvin still has the same grade. Bella still has the same grade, and Charlie still has the same grade. It works. Great. All right, so that's Structs. If you have any questions about that, feel free to leave a comment. If there's something there I went too fast, let me know, and I'll try to explain it in the comments. And one final note is, if you're new to programming, Structs is not usually one of the first things you'll learn. You actually learn more of the other stuff first, but I decided to talk about Structs early because in my programming guide, you're gonna have to use a data structure. And I think it's better to code with the data structure than to use these random variables and then replacing them with the struct later on. So I think it'd just be simpler to just learn how to store data in your program first, and then when you have that down, proceed from there. It'll make things a lot simpler and a lot easier to understand. And if you're still having trouble with this, don't worry. It may take may take you some time to get used to it. May take you some time to get familiar with how to think about how to store things in structs. So don't worry about it. It actually takes everyone some time to get used to it. So don't stress out if you're totally confused. Just watch this video again and feel free to comment. Structs is a good way to organize data in C, and of course you'll find similar ideas, similar programming concepts in other programming languages. All right, and if you haven't downloaded it yet, download my personalized finance app programming guide. And I think it'll be really helpful for you if you're trying to self-learn how to program, because one, it gives you a goal and it helps you have that motivation to keep going because you have this project in mind. And that's how you really get good at programming, is if you have a task, you have a project that you're working on and things don't work, and you debug and you get better. Okay? All right, so I hope this tutorial was helpful for you. Leave a comment again if you have any questions, and peace.